Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack and Ash here, bringing you guys a few pre-records. That's going to be led by myself and Ash here from Spurs Kings TV. Please, everybody, go check it out. It's going to be in that description and as well as pinned in those comments, please. So no excuse. Head on over, check them out. Please show them some love. And we're going to start the first video here with three wingers that I think are kind of the flavor of the week type of wingers that have been all across the social medias. It's Pedro Neto, Ebre Eze from Crystal Palace, and Nico Williams of Athletic Bilbao. And what's nice about this is I've seen different links, at various stages the past few weeks to all three of these players. I'm not going to, be an IT. I'm not going to pretend to be an ITK or anything like that, but we're just going to take these links as they are. They're popular targets already amongst the fan base as it is. Already seeing plenty of highlight reel sort of battles, across, the situations as well. And so I just it's a good time to maybe discuss which one is actually the best one for Spurs, which one is actually the ideal Ange winger in the Ange system. And then also, when you want to think about an extra cherry on top type of question, you have to think about Sonny replacements as well, for the future. Which one can take on that beautiful man's shoes, fill it as best they can, after his long era and reign as a Spurs talisman. But we're going to go to you first, Ash. I mean, you can just start me on any one of these. Which one of these guys is your favorite? Which one of these guys do you love between Eze, Neto, and Williams? And then I probably have some stats and stuff I could back yourself up with.
Now it's an interesting one because three different profiles of player, in my opinion. I think you've got Nico Williams. For me, he's on the he's the out and out winger out of the three of them, in my opinion. Because I have seen Wolves player. I have seen him in the false nine before. I have seen him on the right and I've seen him on the left. Whereas Nico, I've only seen him on the wing, and I know he's got a brother, and they kind of combine quite well and they link up quite well. But in terms of like assisting and creating, I think he between him and Neto, they're the two wingers, in my opinion. Eze has played on the wing, and I remember when Patrick Vieira had him out wide, I felt like you didn't really see the best of Eze. And I know he can play there, but to me, he looks better in the middle, if I'm being totally honest. I feel like as a false nine or as a 10, I would prefer to see Eze in that position where he's got a free roam almost, and he can, like, if he's out wide, is he going to hug the touchline like the other two wingers? Do you know what I mean? Do we know him for blistering place, or do we know him for someone that's quite unpredictable, could drop a shoulder, more of a flair player, if that makes sense? So technically, I look at Eze, could it be the Son replacement? Like, maybe that's where we should be looking for. But in terms of a winger in the Ange system, in my opinion, I would look towards maybe the Nico Williams.
Yeah.
You look at Neto. Obviously, Neto is amazing. If you look at assists at the amount of games that he has played, he's probably one of the highest assister in the game, if not the highest assister in the league at the moment. And the thing most fans are looking at the moment is the injury record, because he's been injured again. Do you really want that? I saw an article yesterday, and he was distancing himself from the Spurs position, saying he would rather go to one of the rivals, Liverpool or Arsenal. So lots of fans will look at that and say, look, let's move on. If he doesn't want us, then we got other targets. Maybe we look for different players in that position. I can't believe how young he actually is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because he's been around so long, I think, and because we've known about him for so long. I think it's like Odegaard, like, as well. Like, we've known him since he's like 16, and we kind of forget that he's still quite young. Same thing with kind of other players like Vinicius Jr. and whatever, they've been around, since they're like 16 or 17. Even Jude Bellingham, we'll probably forget, the guy's going to be like, still take a while till he's like 23 or 24, for somebody like him. But I know exactly what you mean. Where I'm a little conflicted, just quickly, is like what you brought up there is Ebre Eze is probably my favorite, just like in terms of overall players. Like, he's my favorite to watch because I think he's the most just silky, easily the most pleasing on the eye because of just how smooth and everything that he does, effortless. Also, his ball carrying, I'd say, is kind of just, it's almost like it's, yeah, like it requires no effort with him. The way that he carries it past players, he almost uses like no aggression or almost no like extra burst of energy, just sort of takes it past players with no real kind of effort at all. And it's always lovely to watch players like that, kind of like in that Berbatov kind of mold, or Moussa Dembele when he didn't need to use the pace and the power, just simply the skill to get past his players. That's why I like Eze the most. But like you say there, probably thrives more playing centrally and more drifting inside, even if he is playing on that left wing. And what you want with this Postecoglou system is somebody who is comfortable hugging that touchline, keeping the width, and then doing damage in those wide areas, comfortable to receive it out there, take on their man, whip in the crosses, or take it into the box and maybe pull it in for a cutback or some late run into the box from there. And Eze could do that job, but can he do that job as well as a Pedro Neto or a Nico Williams? I wouldn't say he would, actually. He'd probably be better through the middle than those two guys, but what we're looking for is more a winger.
Exactly. And another little stat I always look at is how well are these players at taking the ball under pressure. So when you receive the ball in tight spaces, can they look after it? And when I'm looking at the top players, that's how I judge them. Eze's incredible at taking the ball under pressure, looking after it.
Yeah.
And when we're trying to do a fast transition, when we're trying to keep hold of the ball, that's something I look close to. But on the other hand, how is Eze defensively? If he's going to be a winger, how is he going to protect players like Udogie, Pedro Porro?
Mhm.
Like, is he going to be able to protect them? Because defensively, I'm not entirely sure if he's that guy that kind of works his way back, wins
Does he
the ball
even
back for
enjoy
the
pressing?
team.
You know, does
Does
he
he
even
enjoy-
like it?
This is
Yeah.
the thing, and I go back to the Vieira when he took in charge of Crystal Palace, and he played him on the right, and he dropped him, and I was like, wow, he dropped Eze. And it wasn't until Roy Hodgson come back in that he said, actually,
That's
nah,
right. And then
I'm
Eze
going to
came on
actually
fire.
play this kid back again. And then he took him off the right wing and he played him where, you know, in the midfield, in the attacking midfielder role. So I'm like, yes, Eze is silky. He, you know, everyone's twerking over him. He looks like he's cooking at the moment. Let's face it. Free kicks. He scored against us.
Well, especially last season, I think that's where a lot of the hype came from, because he's
Definitely.
actually the oldest of all of them, though, which is an interesting one, right? You wouldn't also think that. I still remember the young as a
25, yeah.
QPR, and I've always, like I said, he's been one of my favorite players outside of Spurs for a long, long time now, and I still remember that young little kid moving from QPR at the time, and it kind of feels like time has flown by now that all of a sudden he's 25, approaching 26 very soon, whereas Pedro Neto is 24, Nico Williams 21. Big age difference with him, and he's also producing similar numbers, if not the best numbers, out of all these guys right now. And he plays in what is a more, I would say, you know, pressing, kind of working hard off the ball type of team. I occasionally watch Athletic Bilbao, and you know, I do watch more of Wolves and Crystal Palace, but from what I've seen from Bilbao this season, I'd say they are definitely a much more pressing side than the likes of Wolves can be, or even a Crystal Palace would be as well. And so Williams would be likely more comfortable, you know, playing in a high pressing system. And then, as you probably were bringing up earlier, he definitely likes receiving it in those wide areas and doing damage out there. He's probably the best between even himself and Pedro Neto of whipping in crosses. That's another important point, right? As much as I love Eze, is that really one of his best attributes, right? You know, being in those wide areas, whipping in balls into the box. Not really, though. I'd say that's probably more Neto's strength as well as Nico Williams' strength. What's nice about both of them, too, is they're two-footed, and that's very rare nowadays. It feels like with wingers, like it seems like it used to be a standard, used to be a given with most wingers back in the day. Not so much. Most players nowadays are very much more one-footed and will struggle to, provide that service, you know, with the right foot or the left foot with balls into the box to a Sonny, to a Richarlison, to whoever. And Nico Williams and Pedro Neto, I think, are kind of, that's their strength. That's kind of what they're best at, really. And it's kind of the other areas that then we start to figure out which one is better than the other. But I'd say that's what's nice about the two of them is take your pick between the two of them. I think when it comes to creating in those wide areas, they're both incredible.
In terms of goal threat, like, of course, you're going to look at Eze more because he's more of the goal threat. He's a person who will get into the box,
Yeah.
score the goals on the edge of the area, find those little pockets of areas and run into space and get in the end of things. And also at the end of each dribble action, he will try and take a shot. And that's what we've been missing at Spurs for quite some time. And if you're looking for, as you were saying, a Son kind of replacement, then I think he would look more like the Son replacement, in my opinion, from what I've seen. But not to say Nico Williams couldn't do that, because as we both said, he's both footed. He's left foot, right foot, less injury prone than Pedro Neto. But there's going to be a lot of competition for him because of his age. So that's something to take into consideration as well. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that because I mentioned about, his ability to maybe not win the ball back. I just said I haven't seen it, but it doesn't mean he doesn't do it or he's not capable of doing it. I was just throwing that as a rebuttal. Who knows? Ange might see him and say, look, I need you to do this and I need you. And when Ange gets into players' head, you saw what Kulusevski said recently about, Ange, the coach, the man. It sounds like he's a great mentor as well as just a manager. He said he doesn't just talk about tactics. He doesn't just talk about winning and results. He actually motivates you about life because he's been through a lot. And someone like Eze, he's still young, 25, still young. That's enough. His age would be impressionable enough to take those values on and think, actually, yeah, I'm going to play for this guy. Like most guys buy into, Ange and what he's about. Like you've seen how Maddison talks about him. Do you know what I mean? And you've seen how Maddison defends as well off the ball. I know he did that at Leicester, but you just seen it for Spurs in the Spurs shirt. You're like, I think all these players are ready to die for this man. And so like, I don't think that would be much of an issue, but I agree, man. I think in terms of wingers,
well, it's like Ange style, true traditional winger seems to be what we're looking, or what we think is most ideal for this system. It seems to you and I are in agreement, doesn't like he could do a job there, but is he most naturally fit to that position? Maybe not nearly as much as Williams and Neto. And then if you're going to take your pick between, let's just say Williams and Neto, and then we'll sort of circle back to, what, maybe the best pick is in general. But if we're looking at traditional wingers doing the job in those wide areas, whipping in crosses, taking on their man, as well as also retaining possession, like you say, being smart with it. And probably what most people think of is, what guys like Jeremy Doku do in those wide areas, what people like Pedro Neto do for teams like Wolves, just very effective wingers when they receive the ball at creating chances really for whoever it is in those whoever it is in the box, whoever it is around the penalty area. And for me, I feel like Neto's recent sort of injury history, which seems a bit like recency bias and everything like that, it does give me pause for concern because what we're looking for in a Sonny replacement is that longevity, is also that consistency. How often can we say that Sonny's really had, consistent long-term injuries? Not that often. A bit similar to Harry Kane, where it didn't really happen that often, which is why they ended up scoring as many goals as they do, is because they're always available and they're always ready to be picked. And Pedro Neto, not really sure if he fits in that category. Nico Williams, if I remember correctly, though, I wouldn't say he has the cleanest of injury records. I feel like it was like a season or two ago he might have had one, but he is on that younger side, so not much really history to really work with in comparison to somebody like a Neto or an Eze. I'm leaning in terms of the traditional winger. I am leaning towards kind of Williams just because he's two-footed. He's playing in a pressing system right now. He is coming off of his best season ever. I know he's very young, but it is definitely his best season so far in La Liga. He's got 3 goals, 7 assists in the league, and he's got 3 goals and 4 assists in the Copa del Rey as well. It's actually the most goal contributions of any of these guys in all competitions on this list. So you could technically say he's actually having the best season right now, despite how much we love the other two. And I feel like he's probably the most the most basic when it comes to what we're looking at in terms of creating chances and you just, opening things up for his teammates. He's got the most shot creating actions, the most crosses into the penalty area, the most passes into the penalty area, and the most carries into the penalty area. So when we're looking at cutbacks, kind of balls across the 6-yard box, late runs into the box, he just slides it to them. He's the ideal guy, I think. So Nico Williams, for me, when we're looking at traditional wingers and young, fitting the mold of what Spurs have been looking at, probably makes the most sense. I'm going to caveat this at the very end, though, and say Ebery Eze, I'd probably be the most kind of secretly excited about because he's somebody that I've just been a big fan of for like a long, long time. So it'd just be like secret kind of schoolgirl in me would be, more excited about that signing. But Nico Williams weirdly makes most sense in the way that I understand the Postecoglou system.
I get it, like sensible versus what you want, like, that bad B. You want that bad B. So, like, I get it, because Eze, for me, has a
And I see
higher
them all being
goal.
around the same price as well. Last point. That's kind of the other thing I don't think we
What
need to
price is
debate
that?
very much. I
Reckon?
feel like they're all
What?
going to be around 50 to 70, 50 to 80. Wouldn't you think these kind of guys?
Yeah, I'd say 70, towards the 70 mark for Eze,
Probably.
because I think when they were selling Zaha, that was the band on the mark. It was around 70 to 80
True.
million
True.
when we were looking at him. I remember when Poch wanted him, and that was the price that was quoted. There was no way we were going to pay that figure. So could be a stumbling block from what Ange said. He'd rather get 250 million players than get a 100 million player. So the closer it's to 100 million, like 70, 80, the less chance I feel we have getting them. However, I just feel in terms of as a goal threat for me, I think Eze ticks the boxes more. And if this is Williams' best season, are we saying 3 goals is enough for a winger? Like, because the front three, we need to not rely on the central striker. We need goals. I wouldn't just say the front three. You need goals from all over the pitch. But predominantly, you want your
Is he
front
more
three.
creator than scorer? Yeah.
This is what I'm asking. So predominantly, you want your front three to be contributing in the goals, not just assisting. And I feel like with Williams, if 3 goals is his best, we're really digging into Johnson, and Johnson's got 5 goals, and we're saying that's not good enough. Do you know what I mean? So,
very good
like,
point.
imagine his first season. How much time is he gonna get? Like,
Yeah.
we're looking for a player that's ready now, like it's on the cusp. He has a lot of potential, don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying he couldn't produce in the final third. He couldn't get us like a ton full of goals in our system with the players that we have. But then on face value, if you're saying this is the best, then you have to question it. You have to look at it and look. Eze's got previous. I know he's older, so he's got a few more. But maybe that's what we want. Someone that's a bit more experienced and someone that's been in a Premiership, knows what it takes, understands, don't need to settle in. Do you know what I mean?
He's more likely to score, I'd say, of all of them. He has the higher XG out of all of them. And what would you say? Like, probably when it comes to their respective teams, like, they rely on Eze to score. He is the guy they more expect to score. Whereas compared to Neto, I'd say still more in the creator mold than always maybe the goal scorer, you'd say.
It's true.
And then the same thing with Nico Williams, more the creator than you'd say the goal scorer. And
it's true. Like, looking at his position and what he means to Palace, like, yeah, he will have a lot more opportunity to score. He's not their striker, but he's closer to the goal in their system. He is the talisman. He's their golden boy, if that makes sense.
And that would be what Sonny is to a degree. You got to score the goals. And it's not just the creativity. It's got to be goals.
Yeah, this is it. So it's almost like when we got rid of Kane, you kind of wanted Spurs to come and buy 2 or 3 players to replace him, because you can't replace Kane with one player. It's impossible. If Sonny goes, I feel like it's similar. I'm not saying Son's on Kane's level, but when you lose a player like Son, he's so crucial. And the goal contributions that he gives to the team, the amount of assists he's got combined with the amount of goals, we're going to need Eze and someone else to help kind of replace that. If we are looking for a Son replacements, which we think we should be because of Son's age, we don't know how many seasons he's got left in him. But I'm just thinking, if Son stays fit and healthy next season, which I think he will, imagine Son and Eze. Wouldn't that be mouthwatering? Do you know what I mean? Because he's a player. Eze is if Eze is playing the false 9 at times, or playing the 9, whatever, or plays the left or the right, and Son's playing in another position, then you're like, well, I can live with that. That's all right. We could work with that.
No,
but I'm going to say, I'm going to be bold. And I agree with you, but I'm going to go against you, just to make the show a bit more interesting, and say Eze.
I would love for it to be Eze secretly, without using my head, with my heart, it's Eze. And also to back you up, when it comes to the fashion replacement for Sonny, Eze would also be better in that department, being both the Burberry boys. But I'm going to go the way I've been trying to understand this Ange Postecoglou system and trying to think without my heart and where I really would love to go, I'm going to go for Nico Williams. But everybody, this is one of the 3 pre-records I'm doing with Ash here. One of them is only for the members, so feel free to grab a membership. But please, everybody, get down on those comments. Head on over to that description and check out Spurs Kings TV. Well, we'll leave it there. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. We never stop.
Big Ange we trust.